right? Like, I hear people, I'm gonna play this clip for you. Liberals. This is where liberals are right now. You're gonna rip your television off the screen on this video. This is the stuff they're saying on MSNBC.
The person who's watching,
yes,
who just heard you say Donald Trump is not standing up for Ukraine. What do you say to the person who says, well, I don't care about Ukraine. I want Donald Trump to stand up for America. What do you say to them?
I don't know where you got that. I mean, I don't have time for it.
Yes, but we hear it. We hear it.
Here's the thing. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in a place where you thought the Russians were the good guys? What part of America did you grow up in where they taught you the Russians were the good guys and our allies were the bad guys? That's the flip here that we need to continue to remind people. The Russians are the bad guys. They're raping women. They're killing children. They're bombing cities. The Ukrainians are the noble good guys. In some ways, they're more American than we are over the last couple of years. And we must stand with them in the same way we stood with the Allies in World War II and since this country was founded. This is not just about Ukraine. This is about the core and the integrity of American values.
This guy just said that Ukrainians are more American than Americans, and that fighting Ukraine, like that, the Russians cosmically are the bad guys. Like not even situational, right? Cosmically, they're the bad guys. They're Satan incarnate, and it is noble for us to send billions in order to get all of these people killed. This is the trash commentary, this faux intellectual commentary. All of that was just propaganda. None of that was talking about reality. We grew up believing the Russians were the bad guys and the Ukrainians are more American than Americans. And so we need to fight with Ukraine because Russia is the bad guy. Dude, what are you talking about? I'm going to let you hear that. That is what goes for MSNBC. That is what liberals say to each other. That is what they're brave enough to say online or on TV. The fact that Russia was trying to avoid this war doesn't matter. The fact that there were agreements that Ukraine and the United States broke doesn't matter. The fact that they overthrew the Ukrainian government, meaning us, in 2014 doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters to him. He may not even know that stuff, right? His thing is Russia's evil. Us fighting the Russians is a cosmic good. And so, we need to continuously give Ukraine money in the war that they lost. And now that they're trying to get kids into the war, we should now support them in getting kids into the war that they've lost. This incompetent Neanderthal is out here telling other liberals this nonsense. This fathead is out there is telling people this. I'm just astonishing. Like that is astonishing that is the stuff that they're telling each other. Give me a take on this, Garland.
You know what it made me think about? I was watching Matt Taibbi a while back, and he was saying that when he was looking into some stuff that these censors were doing when they were doing all this censorship online. And he said, when you read what they said, that's essentially what they said. It wasn't about the content. You had to censor this person who was saying something. It was about, well, those are the bad guys and we're the good guys. So when they would censor you, Jamal, if you put something up about an actual factual tweet about something Russia or whoever it was they didn't like, their position as they were censoring your tweets or whatever was, well, Jamal's one of the bad guys, so his tweet has to go down. Then somebody else, a NAFO troll or something, puts up, he's one of the good guys, so his tweet has to stay up. It is the intellectual, moral, and philosophical bankruptcy of modern day liberalism. You and I are people who we like to nuance things. I might not like that something is true, right? But I might not like it. It may go up against everything that I believe in. If it's true, what am I going to do about it? I'm going to read it. I keep saying there's things that Trump is doing. I'm like a working class person. I believe in the working class. When he fires a bunch of people over at the Department of Interior, I'm 100% opposed to that. It outrages me. When he tries to stop a war, I'm 100% in favor of that. That's wonderful. Donald Trump's not a good guy or a bad guy. You don't judge the people. You judge the actions. And that is the bankruptcy of modern day liberalism that just says the arrogance. We determine who the good guys are bad guys are. And we assign actions based on not what, but whom. I remember another thing, an article in the Washington Post, and what they basically said when they did this research, and they would ask people questions and then say who said it. And what they found out was most Americans make their decisions on whether they support political policies on who said it. And I used to play that game. I'd say to somebody when Obama was in, I'd say, what do you think about when Reagan said so-and-so? And they'd say, it was great. It was brilliant. It was wonderful. And I'd say, oh, my bad. That wasn't Reagan. That was Obama. And they go, oh, shit. And I do it the opposite, just to play with somebody and just to demonstrate to them, you don't really care what's said. You only care who said it. And that's where they are. Remember George Bush, George W., you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. It doesn't matter who does what. It just matters who does it. And that's where that's why I keep saying the Democratic Party today is the Republican Party of George W. Bush. This Manichaean, it is this. The Manichaean philosophy is in the universe, there's two forces, absolute good and absolute evil. And there's a constant war between absolute good and absolute evil. And of course, everybody that always says, now, of course, I'm on the side of absolute good. It's just pathetic. It's worse than childlike to watch that guy.
Yeah. It's something you've said in the past, too. This idea that liberals are so self-righteous. And if you're that self-righteous, then how can you ever do anything wrong? Like, meaning, whatever position I take, I am, by definition, self-righteous. I know I'm right. And because I know I'm right, morally, ethically, I'm superior, then the positions that I effectively take have to be, by definition, right and wrong. Like, it's so childish, right? Like, and again, I used to be the way too. Like, when I used to look at this stuff, oh, that guy said this. And then somewhere along the way, I've gotten so cynical where I have no expectation that any of these people are good. Like, from my point of view, all of these people are bad. And so the only thing I'm ever going to get out of this is, okay, there are going to be things I get that I want, and there are going to be most things that I get that I don't want. And so when it's something that I want, I can say, this is good. I like this. This is a good thing. Even if it's coming from somebody who I consider to be bad, if that makes sense. Like, in their minds, though, that's not the way they process this. They process. And honestly, if it was Joe Biden doing this, he'd be fine. Let's be honest, right? If it was Joe Biden who decided, okay, I'm going to unravel this, etc., that dome head would have no issue. I strongly suspect that at 3 a.m. between him and his God, his issue is Donald Trump is making peace. Donald Trump is bad. So peace, by definition, is bad because it's coming out of Donald Trump, which is so childish that it breaks the cosmos in how childish it is. That guy has an intellectual efficacy of a child playing in shit. Let's be honest. He doesn't know anything about this. He just knows Russia's bad, Putin is bad, and so we must keep sending money to a losing war. It doesn't even register to him that Ukraine is lost. It doesn't even register. It doesn't register that they're talking about let's send in our kids to a war that we've lost. That doesn't register. That doesn't even matter. And you think to yourself, how can that not matter? Like, even if I don't like, let's say that everything he's saying is right. Let's pretend for the moment that Russia is the bad guy in this. Let's pretend that, this is the war against good and evil. You've lost that war. You've lost that war. Like, even if you don't like it, you've lost that war. And the fact that you've lost that war, so what do you do now that you've lost the war? Do you keep sending money into a losing war? Do you keep sending all of these people to die in a losing war? In his mind, the answer is yes. I think that's outrageous. Like, yes, my mom asked me one day, why don't you like Zelensky? And as I was putting out, he got all these people killed. And I see this in liberals, where in their minds, it's, well, we must keep fighting against evil, even if we've already lost. And it's like, you would think that there would be some measure where you say, okay, we've lost this war. And it is a wrong to continuously send people into a war that we've already lost. It doesn't register. I don't understand why it doesn't register. Like, I got to be honest. I am honestly like confused by why that doesn't matter. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, even the woman before, I mean, if you go to her first statement, quite frequently, she says, use the word stand up for Ukraine, right? That's a metaphor. That's right. It's a metaphor. We're not literally sitting down and we're going to stand up on our feet for Ukraine. She means metaphorically stand up for Ukraine. So even like people like us will ask this. What do you mean by stand up for Ukraine? You know what I mean? When you say, I'm going to stand up for Ukraine, my first question is, what do you mean by stand up for Ukraine? Does that mean, here's the way it sounds to me, we should act in the best interest of Ukraine? Because if you delve into her statement that says stand up for Ukraine, I have to interpret that to mean act in the best interest of Ukraine. Now we've got an argument, because I'm arguing if Ukraine is facing a superior foe, then the best interest of Ukraine is to stop the fight, because they're going to get the hell beat out of them. If I'm standing there and Mike Tyson's pummeling me, we got to act in the best interest of Garland. That means do whatever you can do to get him out of that ring, because Mike Tyson's going to kill him. Right? So to say that you continue fighting Garland, what are you doing? I'm standing up for Garland. Continue. Keep your face in front of Mike Tyson's fist so he can continue to pummel you. So the whole thing is intellectually bankrupt, because they use these think about this conversation. You and I will have a nuanced conversation. Well, we got to start with who's at fault, who's right and wrong. We've got to take this thing apart so we can determine what the moral position is. Who's right and who's wrong. Morally, we got to discuss that. And then we got to take the physical, kinetically, who can win, who can't. That's our discussion, right? Who's right, who's wrong, using a historical context. Is Ukraine even acting on its own behalf? Does it have agency? We can argue no, it's a proxy war. Okay, that's what we would do. The first woman says, stand up for Ukraine. That's metaphor, means nothing. The next guy goes, the Russians are the bad guys and these guys are the good guys. How do you know that, sir? That's what I learned for years when I was a child. He goes, to talk about. That's what we learned when I was a child. Back during the Cold War, they told us the Russians were bad. No, they didn't. They said the Soviet Union was bad. They didn't say the Russians were bad. They said the Soviet Union was bad. In fact, the Soviet Union doesn't exist, and it wasn't evil then. That was nothing but propaganda then, and it is now. So it's back then, I was told this, and I can't change now. I can't think for myself and look at it and say, maybe I was lied to by the government. The whole thing is just intellectually bankrupt. Metaphors, good versus bad. No actual technical, political, geopolitical conversation about the details of this thing. No, hey, what about when you told the Soviet Union then that you wouldn't move 1 inch forward towards that you wouldn't expand NATO, all of the conversations that we have, but they can't have those conversations.
Yeah.
Because if they have those conversations, the rest of that bull crap they're doing collapses in minutes. And one last thing. And that's why people aren't watching that crap anymore. That's why people are rapidly flooding into alternative spheres such as this, because they want to hear a conversation with people that sound like they got a brain instead of these brain dead idiots using metaphors and the good guys versus the bad guys. People are sick of that crap.
Well, and there's this. This is CNN, I believe. Listen to what he says here. Okay, it's just a graphic. So CNN asked the question, is Russia an ally or an enemy? In 2023, 64% said they were an enemy. In 2025, 34% said they were an enemy. A 30% drop in the number of people that consider Russia an enemy just within a year or 2 years. I think on some level, this explains why Democrats are on the outs. Because on all of these issues, they seem to be out of sync with the rest of the country. I mean, 34% saying they're an enemy. Okay, I don't think the majority loves Russia. I don't think that. The propaganda runs deep in regards to, like she said, Cold War and all that stuff. But you're getting more people saying, okay, well, they're not an enemy of us. And it seems that there seems to be a turn. Now, I know a lot of those people are Republicans. I suspect that the rest of them are liberals. The entire 34% are probably liberals. But it does seem to be a shift in the way that the American public is thinking about this, thinking about the war, thinking about Zelensky, whereas liberals haven't changed. They just haven't changed. They're standing still. It's so aggravating to me that these people are doing this.
Well,
And I
you
get
don't
the sense that it begins and ends with Trump. I think it begins and ends with Trump. And Tulsi Gabbard is another really good example of this. If you remember, at her confirmation hearing, Tulsi Gabbard brings up Syria. She brings up the Syrian war. She brings up the fact that we're helping terrorists. And the Democrat was like, yeah, I get all that. I get all that. But why'd you say it? Like, meaning, I accept that you talking about Obama trying to overthrow the Syrian government. I accept it's true. That we were helping terrorists. I accept that's true. That we have a terrorist that's in there now. I accept that's true. That we help put them in. I accept all that. Why'd you say it? That was such an astonishing exchange to me, because it means, look, we know what's happening, but we have policy that we are implementing. And regardless of what we do, regardless of how bad it is, keep your mouth shut. You're not supposed to say it. That's the issue. I understand that you know it, but you're not supposed to go on CNN and point it out. You're not supposed to point this out. This is not stuff that you're supposed to actually say. That's mind-blowing when you think about it. They know what's going on.
It's almost like, how are we going to dupe the American people if you tell them something that's true? You know what I mean? That's the way I heard it. Like, yeah, we know that amongst us, but the dupes out there, they're not supposed to hear these kinds of things. And we all know the rules that we can internally know what's true. But if it's something that benefits us, we'll tell them the truth. Other than that, we just lie to them about all of this stuff in case for whatever reason we want to do. And Tulsi wasn't buying it. And what's happened is this: the Democrats have retreated into this world where they're not allowed to have any kind of a conversation of note with the American people. And people have kind of picked up on it. Meanwhile, all this, here's the thing about it: all this stuff on the back channels of the internet, such as us, you know what I mean, or whoever, Jimmy Dore or Glenn Greenwald, whoever, you know what I mean. I could name channel after channel, the Duran, whatever, are having conversations. We don't all agree on everything, right? There's things we don't agree on, but we're having conversations that are genuine, honest conversations. And a lot of times, even if we disagree, we start with the same set of facts. This is true, this is true, this is true. And then we go in different directions with it, which is fine, which I just keep, every time I look at that kind of stuff, I just think, no wonder alternative media is growing, because people want an intellectual conversation. And these are people who the only thing they know is how that inside game is played. There's an esoteric conversation, right? An internal conversation that they have, and then the exoteric conversation, or the cover story. I think that's the term I was looking for. We got to go with the cover story. We can't have the internal conversation in front of all of the dupes. And things are changing. And now that's the thing about it is this. I keep saying, at the rate the Democrats are going, man, unless something dramatic happens, the midterms are not going to be kind to them. People don't want to hear this crap. Nobody's watching. Yeah, if I watched MSNBC, when I turned that on, I'd never watch it again. I would feel like they were insulting my intelligence to say to me, it's the good guys and the bad guys. That's the way I was grown up to believe. And but yet, you want to tell me that some guy, just because he has a camouflage camouflage hat and a pickup truck and a Trump sign on, oh, that guy's my enemy. Well, you know what? That guy knows more about the truth and the facts now about reality, about Syria, or about Kursk and Kharkov and Kiev. The guy with the camouflage hat on and the pickup truck and the Trump sticker on his pickup truck knows a hell of a lot more about geopolitics than those people. That's factual.
Can we talk about Syria real